Hi, it's Jeff Up in the Big Game Hunter, and welcome to Career Coach Office Hours for Friday, April 22nd, 2022. I spend time on Tuesdays and Fridays at 1 p.m. Eastern talking with you about, answering questions about job search, hiring more effectively, management, leadership, and helping you resolve different workplace issues. So I accept questions in a couple of different ways. Of course, during the show, you can put them into chat. I'd be very happy to answer things that come at me from out of the blue. Or you can message me through LinkedIn. My page there is linkedin.com/in/the big game hunter. Message them to me. I'd be very happy to answer your questions during the course of my next show. Now, I want to mention that next week on Tuesday's show, I'm not going to be doing it live. I'm going to pre-record it because I'm appearing on Kenneth Lang's show at the same time. So I will have taken questions from people beforehand so that in this way, I'm doing a live Q&A show as well. So apologies. Friday is my first anniversary for Career Coach Office Hours. The actual anniversary date is the next day, but it's the first anniversary, 1 year of doing these live streams, answering questions from you. So that's my schedule for this week, and I hope to be able to help you. And I'll just again remind you, if you've got a question about job search, about hiring more effectively, management, leadership, or want advice about a particular workplace issue, put that into chat so this way I can deal with it during today's show. And I normally start with a coffee toast, and frankly, I forgot my coffee. So excuse me that it's water. I'm a Giants football fan. I'm going to use my water mug for doing this today. And I want to acknowledge those of you who help people in the workplace. So you could be in HR, you could be coaches. And I'm going to mention some folks who a lot of you don't treat with respect. I'm going to acknowledge the recruiters, both corporate and third party, who hustle to try and help you find work and be successful in that work. So a toast of all to all of those, to all of you who help people in this kind of way, okay? Thank you. So I received a number of questions, and I'm going to get going with these, okay? I'm in my first year in business administration. This person's going for a BBA. What should I start doing now or after to get into HR? I think the first thing to do is to spend a little time reaching out to people who are doing the kind of work you expect to be doing when you start in the field, because you have an idea of what it's like to work in HR. That's probably not based in reality. So I want to encourage you before you go down this road, because I think you said you were a first year as an undergraduate student going for a bachelor's in business administration. I want you to actually talk to people who are doing the work so you have an idea of what it's really like, what the good parts of it are, what the not so good parts are, what a typical day is like, what it takes to move up within an HR organization, what compensation's like. You don't know. And I don't care if you have a parent who's working in the field. They don't remember what it's like to be a beginner and to be sitting at a desk waiting for work to be assigned to you. So talk to people is the first course of action I encourage people to take, and even go so far as to develop a relationship with folks. So that way, maybe you get an internship with their firm. Talk to a number of them, not just one, not just two. Go for 10. Go for 10 people who are doing this kind of work. Go to people who have attended your school, who've moved into this line of work, so that in this way you're able to hear the real scoop about what it's like to do this work before you've invested thousands of dollars and years of time to discover it's kind of awful. So that's what I would tell you to do first. Okay. Let's go to the next question. What challenges do you have to face when hiring as a diversity recruiter? Let me state that again. So as a person who does diversity recruiting, what challenges do you face in the hiring process? And of course, the most obvious thing is number one, finding candidates. But number two, having an environment where they're going to want to go to work. Because it's one thing to say, hey, I'm a diversity recruiter and I've got a great job where they want to hire someone of a diverse group. And then people get to that organization and, excuse my language, it sucks because the firm is not prepared to do anything more than just simply hire someone to check a box. And no one wants to be a token, do they? So your biggest job as a diversity recruiter is to ensure that the environment that you're recruiting for, and I'm first treating this like a third-party recruiter is asking the question, for you as a third-party recruiter trying to identify, refer, and get candidates hired by your clients, you want to make sure that they're prepared for this. And this is not just simply tokenism on their part. What's it like going to be like working there? Are they going to be the only person of this population in the group? In which case, they can be ignored. And no one wants to be ignored, do they? And that happens more often than not. I was reading something that someone wrote on a site called Fishbowl. And this person was talking about being reprimanded by the director of HR and was told that they were being defensive and aggressive when they were actually being respectful and expressing grievances and frustration. And from many people of color, they join primarily white organizations, and it goes beyond not being understood. She basically stood up for herself and wound up being in a situation where she was reprimanded for it. So you want to be in a situation where you're putting people into roles where they can win, and they're not put into a situation where they're doomed to failure or institutional racism or blind spots that have been institutionalized are found as being acceptable. So that's really where I would start doing your work on behalf of your clients. What should you do if you're interviewing for a job and suddenly don't feel well? Now, in the age of COVID, this is not that hard. You can just very simply say, ooh, I'm feeling a little off. I'd like to step away for a minute. Could you point me toward the restroom, please? And see how you feel upon completion of that visit. If you still don't feel well, I would call the person on their phone and say, I'm feeling off and I'm going to leave right now, but I'm hoping that you'll still consider me. This day and age, it's a time where I don't want to risk passing something on to someone until I know what's going on with me. So excuse me for bringing our conversation to an abrupt halt, but I'm not feeling well, and I'm not going to present myself in my best way to you. So may I call you in 2 days when I'm hopefully feeling better and hustle my way back in to meet with you? And they'll go, sure, no problem, because they don't want to get sick either, and then do so and keep them updated. The job may not be held open for you because they may have other people, but you're not passing on a bug to someone, let alone COVID. Okay. Do all companies expect software engineers to be leaders and include leadership and people skills as part of their performance reviews and promotional criteria? So my first reaction is, or my first response is to think, what do you think a leader is? I bet you if I pressed you, it would really be a manager that you're talking about. I think they want to find people who are capable of growing into management roles first and demonstrate leadership qualities in the course of the work. Now, that doesn't mean barking orders at people and pushing them around and treating them like crap, just to be clear about that. You wouldn't want to be treated that way, and no one wants to be treated that way. So, do they want to see that? Now, if you're a 1 year person, they have no expectations of you doing that, demonstrating leadership like a 10 year person might. But they want to see if you're conducting yourself responsibly, whether you're accountable for your performance, whether they're having to reprimand you for some reason on a regular basis, or, God forbid, be put on a performance improvement plan that basically says you've got 30 days to get up to speed or you're out the door. So, is there an expectation that software engineers be leaders? No. Growing into leadership, yes. Improving their performance, being responsible and accountable, yes. Interested in leadership, probably not a requirement in all places, but they like to see these attributes because it comes with personal maturity on your part. I remember being a beginner and into work avoidance. So I would do anything to pretend like I was working rather than actually working. I outgrew that quite obviously. And you may go through your version of being immature in the workplace and then kick into gear where you suddenly are extremely responsible because you start to care about your work and stop being a work avoider like I was. Okay. Let me just check one thing. Why is it called a cover letter? Easy. Back in the Stone Ages, when I began in recruiting, and the internet didn't exist. Can you believe that? The internet never existed at a certain point in history. The way resumes would be submitted to companies was by US mail. People mailed resumes to companies, and they were responded to and given interviews or not. What a cover letter was a document stapled to the top of the resume that outlined what your experience was. Now, the typical thing was to say, I'm forwarding my resume to you for the position of software engineer with your company that I saw advertised in Computer World, a name that I think has disappeared, the New York Times, or wherever it was in the country that newspaper advertisement appeared. I believe I would make a very strong candidate for this position and hope you see it the same way. Please call me to discuss my background. And that's the way the resume was presented. So the cover letter was a cover to the resume, placed on top of the resume, often stapled to the resume so it wouldn't be separated, that basically said, this is what the next document is going to tell you. And by the way, just as an aside, thank you so much. Have a great sense of humor. Thank you. My wife and son would disagree with you, but heck, what do they know? I think they're wrong too. But thank you for the kind words, okay? And by the way, Soli, if you have a question, I hope I pronounced your first name correctly. If you've got a question for me, put it in the chat. Be happy to answer it. So let's continue on with the next question. What advice would you give someone going into a leadership position for the first time? Okay, so there's two things I want to point out. There's a difference between being promoted into leadership and joining a firm from another organization as a leader. And thus, if you're being promoted, it's almost harder because now you're different than the people you worked with. And suddenly, those jokes that all of you would share with one another, you're different. You're in a different place with different responsibilities. And now you feel the weight of the world on your shoulders. And it's not the same anymore, is it? So I would talk with the folks that I'm leading and say, I'm in a different role now. I want to go to lunch with you folks and feel as though you're not going to treat me as being different. Like I'm still the same person as when I sat over there. But at the same time, I have different responsibilities now. And at times I'm going to have to push you. And I would appreciate your support. But sometimes people are going to be kicking the can at me, and I'm going to push it back at you because we've got to get stuff done. So I would have an honest conversation about how you have different responsibilities. You want to remain their friend, and hope they see it that way. If you're coming from the outside, it's about making connection with people in the organization who report to you. Not being their friend, but connecting with them, making sure they feel heard and understood, that you're not just being a tyrant barking orders at them, that you care about them. And that's really where I would start, is listening to them about what your predecessor did well and what they didn't do quite so well, and compare it with what you were told on the way in when you were hired. So listen and learn, and don't just make instant changes. When they come to you for advice on day 3 or permission to do something on day 3, I would say, how would you do this? Because frankly, you know better in this environment what will work than I. And once they tell you what they want to do, explain it to me why you think that's the best solution and what other alternatives might exist for you that you'd consider. And help them make a decision about what to do and how to do it. So you're not dictating to people, you're helping them come to good decisions. And if they screw up, well, very simply, you have to own responsibility for it because you weren't ready to make a choice. But they're going to want to prove their abilities to you because you knew and you're their boss. And thus, I don't think you have to worry about them acting out of control or do things out of incompetence, but they will want to prove to you that they're capable and take their advice. Okay. So I want to remind you that if you've got a question about a job search, hiring, management, leadership, or want advice about a workplace issue, put it into chat, okay? And you want to visit my website, thebiggamehunter.us, where I've got thousands of posts in the blog, like more than 12,000 searchable posts. You can schedule time for a free discovery call, a coaching session, find out about my courses, books, and guides, and there'll be a lot there to help you. My courses and books are inexpensive, by the way. Like the courses are at most $25 for a minimum 1-hour video course. So there's a lot of great material there. As of now, most of the courses are around interviewing, and there's one about starting a new job. Okay. So I'm also going to remind you, subscribe to JobSearchTV.com on YouTube. Download the app by that name on Amazon and watch me there. You can also subscribe to my podcast, No BS Job Search Advice Radio, which is the #1 podcast in Apple Podcasts for job search, with more than 2,300 episodes over more than 11 years related to job search. You can also watch it as a video podcast on Spotify. You can also listen in Apple Music, Google Play, or probably almost anywhere you listen to podcasts these days. So again, just want to encourage you to do that as well. Okay. Let's go to the next question, please. Why is LinkedIn important for job search and students? I'm going to treat that in two parts. When you get out of school, you're probably going to want to find work. And as a student, one of the ways to find who the hiring managers are, or the HR people are, or even to find some of the open jobs that might fit you is on LinkedIn. You can network to hiring managers and engage them in conversations. You can start marketing yourself and writing. And the writing can consist of, let's say you're doing an undergrad in marketing. It can be your thoughts about marketing, what I learned about marketing this week and how I could apply it going forward. Do this every other week, and suddenly you have a library of material that's searchable on LinkedIn that will help you stand out from others. Why is it important for job search? Because employers think it's important for job search. So you need to be there so that they can find you. Treat your LinkedIn profile as a resume that's online permanently, and that you should use terms in the LinkedIn profile that will allow you to be discovered if someone were searching for you. And there's a lot more, but LinkedIn is the primary tool that companies use to find talent that they schedule for interviews and then subsequently hire. Let's go to the next question, please. Does the employee onboarding experience play a great role in employee retention? I saw Lynn Williams include something in a blog post she did earlier today, where she quoted a JobVite survey that said 30% of new hires leave within 6 months of joining. That's partially because of onboarding and bad onboarding. That's partially because the job was misrepresented to them by a hiring manager who wanted to make sure that this person who is sitting opposite them on camera or in person would want the job. So they exaggerated certain attributes of it. But the onboarding process plays a part too. How? Easy. It begins the process of integrating people into the organization. And to be clear, I'm not talking about the part on day one where you go to HR and they do employee orientation. That's only a small part of the onboarding process. What I'm thinking about is how a hiring manager integrates, onboards a person once they join. So when all is said and done, it plays a significant part in why that failure rate, why 30% of new hires quit. Not think about quitting, but they quit within 6 months of joining. Should you apply with the same resume for every job, or should you tailor it for each one? Of course, tailor it for each one. The broken watch is right twice a day. So should you wear that watch, or should you get it fixed or buy a new one? After all, it's right twice a day. Same thing with your resume. If your resume doesn't make a case for the position you're applying for, you won't get an interview and you won't get hired. So what you want to be doing is making sure that your resume represents how you can do that job and how your experience fits what that firm has identified that they're looking forward to, or they want someone to possess at the time that they hire them. So, it's really very simple. Okay. Let's see now. What is the one common denominator of all resumes that get, this person says, thrown out? I'll say deleted. Answer: the resume doesn't make a case for why you're qualified to do the job. It becomes the equivalent of digital spam. And who the hell is going to invite someone whose resume doesn't make a case for their qualifications for a job? Who's going to invite them to be interviewed? Answer: 0 people. And that's why your resume gets deleted. So the one common denominator of all those resumes is it doesn't demonstrate how your background fits the experience that they want. Should I decline to self-identify on job applications? Most job applications don't ask for gender anymore. It's too complicated for these large firms, even small firms, to deal with that as an issue. So, should you decline to self-identify? I'd be surprised if you're asked. It's that simple. Let's go to the next question. How can I get a job without any previous experience? The same way other people do. They apply for jobs. They network. They use people who they know to introduce them, interview well, and help them get hired. So, how do you do it without any previous experience? For thousands of years, people have looked for work and they've had no experience. They've seen job ads that say, we want someone with 2 to 4 years of experience, but I have no experience. Sorry, you're not qualified. Get some experience. Keep reaching out. The person who introduces you for a company that's trying to hire is doing a great service for you and for their firm. Maybe they'll even go so far as to receive an employee referral bonus because of what they've done. So, how can you get a job? Get referred for it. I've got 2 more questions at this point. Let me just see if there are any others here. Bear with me, please. I'm just going to remind you, if you've got a question, put your questions about job search, hiring, management, leadership, or your particular workplace issue, put it into chat. I'd be happy to answer your question. Again, I've got 2 more questions to go. So I'm probably going to run about 32 to 35 minutes today. And the next question is, I received an email from HR after an interview that said, we will continue our recruiting process with you. Okay. What can I take from that? The answer is either you're going to be interviewed again, which is what I think they're really saying, or we're going to be making you an offer. I think they're saying we want to interview you again, and we'll be in touch when we have the hiring manager's schedule. And I would message them to confirm that with them. Okay? Last question for today. Why do some job application forms require you to fill in all the details in your resume, even after you uploaded your resume? Easy. Because what you uploaded is not a legal document. And thus, if you lied on the application, well, it's not the same. Or lied on your resume, it's not the same as if you manually entered it and completed an application online. As a result, this is a legal requirement, and thus it is a legal document. Let me restate that. It's not a legal requirement, but they're doing it because it's a legal document that can be the grounds for termination if they find out you lied. The resume is not. So that's why they do it, and be as accurate as you can possibly be. Do not put in, see my resume. Don't take the lazy approach. Do it thoroughly and accurately. If you're not sure about dates and wages, simple. Put in the phrase approx. Now, this normally occurs for more experienced people, entering information about things they did a long time ago. So when all is said and done, what you want to be doing is being accurate so that this way there's an opportunity for them to have a legal document. And again, don't lie on it. So I'm not seeing any other comments or questions. I hope you enjoyed today's show. If you're watching on YouTube, click the like button, share it, do something that lets people know it was worthwhile. I also want to mention Tuesday, again, is going to be a pre-recorded show. I'll be back live on Friday, but still send me your questions over the weekend so that this way I can cover them on the pre-recorded Tuesday show. In addition, visit my website, thebiggamehunter.us, where I've got more than 12,000 searchable posts that you can watch, listen to, or read that will help you. Also, you can schedule time for a free discovery call, schedule time for coaching. I'd love to help. You can also find out about my courses, books, and guides. Again, a lot of great content that will help you. Also, subscribe to JobSearchTV.com on YouTube. Download the app of that name on Amazon and subscribe to No BS Job Search Advice Radio and Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, Google Play, or wherever you listen to the show. And connect with me on LinkedIn at linkedin.com/IN/The Big Game Hunter. Hope you have a terrific day, and most importantly,